So, Journal 8 Exploration across Thedas was released this week, as well as some IGN on-hands, so to speak, gameplay. Let's take a look at both of those. Hi everyone, it's Hubert Shorter here with another video from It's Gaming. Well, this week BioWare has done us proud. They've released some video just detailing some of the different areas that we can expect to see in Dragon Age The Veilguard. But IGN also got the opportunity to actually play the game for a period of time. So I've got my thoughts on some of that gameplay. But I want to start first and foremost with the description of some of the different areas that we can expect to see in the game. So I'm going to go across to the Dragon Age website where they've got exploration across Thedas. There it is. A look into how Rook will discover the world. And so, what we've basically got here is just a bit more explanation in terms of the different areas that we can find within the game. It starts, hello everyone, today we're back to share more about the world of Dragon Age The Veilguard, minus spoilers below. While the game is a crafted experience telling a rich narrative, there are many areas to explore. The lighthouse, which we'll talk about a bit later on, for example, is a central place for Rook to rest, spend time with companions and learn more about the world through conversation. The crossroads allow the Veilguard to traverse Thedas in seconds, connecting the lighthouse to more of the world than ever before. And then from there, they basically go into some of the areas that we can expect to encounter. Now, I'll just show you this first one. There's no audio with this. So this one actually reminds me a little bit of the very first game, Dragon Age. I'm sure there was a place very similar to this where we fought some wolves. I can see we've got a face there. And towards the end of this video, there it is. It looks like they've got their own version of the Argonath from Lord of the Rings. So it looks pretty cool. And that's the Arlathan Forest. Ancient magic and powerful artifacts reawaken, and reality thins across the woodlands that were once held, or at least that once held, the heart of the Elven Empire. The Veil Jumpers, masters of ancient elven magic, seek to stabilize the region and keep reality from crumbling. Sounds pretty cool. Now, the next section is the Hossberg, I think that's right. The Hossberg wetlands. It looks like it's in a bit of trouble there. Let's have a look at it first. So it's been totally consumed by the blight, you can see there. And I'm almost certain those orbs on the trees and on other structures, those will actually explode. So it's not a nice looking place. It does have a description. Much of this once peaceful marshland has been consumed by the blight. Darkspawn roam the swamps with impunity. But the Grey Wardens mount a valiant defense of the last safe haven, Lavendel, if I pronounce that correctly. So a lot of battles in that region I would fully expect. Now we've got what looks like some sort of merchant trading town or city, Minrathus. That's capital of the Tevinter Imperium. The Venatori wield corruption as they try to turn the Empire's heart to their own dark purposes, yet the people resist, with the rebel shadow dragons leading the charge. And this is typical of a fantasy town city. I imagine you might encounter one or two merchants. Some people have complained about the art direction in the game. Look, I don't have a problem with it. I think the most important thing is going to be the overall gameplay, but we'll talk about that a little later on when we look at the IGN stuff. So, the next section is this part called Rivain. An ancient Grey Warden fortress sits among sparkling waters. It looks very tropical. And lush greenery of the Rivain coast. The Lords of Fortune call this paradise home. The servants of the gods have their own plans, however, and threaten to turn this sanctuary into a battlefield. It looks very nice, a la BG3. But, and I'm wondering if we've seen some video of some battles taking place here. I'm not too sure, but it looks very nice. It looks like the kind of place you'd go to if you were on holiday. We've got some bones over there on the right, but generally a nice looking place. Good water animation there as well. So as one would expect, there will probably be something that we face there. And then we've got Treviso, a merchant city known for the beauty of its canals and the deadliness of its assassins. Treviso is under Antam occupation, a state of affairs that sits poorly with the Antivan Crows. So they've got something to say about all of this. Again, taking a look at it, looks a lot like a typical town city you might encounter. Again, I would imagine that if you choose to work with the Antivan Crows, then this place is going to become pretty important to you. I'm actually wondering if this was the place that was in that very first introductory video when the Veilguard was released. It's looking very similar, but who knows? Anyway, that's a bit of an overview of those different locations. We're given some additional information about the lighthouse, which is basically your HQ, but also the fact that in these different locations, and this is great, obviously there's going to be loot, there's going to be equipment, puzzles and lore, statues, letters and artifacts. Again, what we would expect, so that's just great to know. It goes on to say companions will interact with the world as well, with specific exploration abilities. So again, brilliant stuff. Now, as I said, this is not the only bit of information that's been released this week from BioWare in terms of the game. There is also a lot of gameplay that IGN have been able to get their hands on. So why don't we take a little bit of a look at it now? So, IGN got their hands on Dragon Age The Veilguard and were able to play it for a while. And a video's been posted with thoughts, reflections on how the game has developed. I've not really had a chance to watch this yet, so this is really going to be a live reaction, even though this is a recording. So, I'm going to just get straight into it right now.
It's been 10 long years since Dragon Age Inquisition.
Can't believe it's been 10 years.
The next game in the series, Dragon Age The Veilguard, seem impossible. A full decade, a bevy of behind-the-scenes changes, and an interesting start to its marketing campaign.
Again, I'll say the hair animation is awesome.
I admire you. What you've been through would break most people.
But one of my biggest concerns, based on early previews, was that it could be headed in the direction of being a linear action game rather than its more open-world predecessor. While Dragon Age is known for changing its style with each installment, I hoped dearly that it wouldn't lose too much of the DA DNA I fell in love with.
I was worried about that.
Hands-on time spread across 2 days, I'm pleased to say that I walked away with excitement and curiosity, but mostly relief to wave many of those concerns goodbye.
Okay. What does that mean, though?
My time with the Veilguard covered a wide smattering of things, including the incredibly expansive character creator.
I'll say again, that is the thing that I want to see more than anything else, the character creator. I love a good character creator. Dragon's Dogma 2 perhaps had the best character creator I've seen so far, so it'll be interesting to see what they've come up with.
The introductory quest, a faction mission, and a companion quest a little deeper into the game. But I was mostly pleased with my ability to just explore Northern Thedas and all its gorgeously designed glory.
Exploration is important.
Dragon Age lore that we've really only heard about. To be clear, the Veilguard isn't the open world playground that Inquisition was. As game director...
That's a big worry for a lot of people.
It's more mission-based. But what impressed me for the first few hours was how much exploration can still be done in the various regions.
Oh, okay.
The player character, Rook, can have on those regions.
And there we go. Easy.
Oh, we got a bit of magic.
Consider it something of a mix of Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition. The more streamlined approach of the former with the geographically and socio-politically diverse world of the latter.
And Inquisition was a great game. No one's going to say otherwise.
Some of the bigger art style, combat, and gameplay changes will be subject to personal taste. But
And we've already started to see that online.
10 long years just might have been worth the wait. As fans have already seen from the first gameplay trailer, players are dropped right into the city of Minrathous in the middle of the action as Solas prepares a ritual that will devastate Thedas. Luckily, our old friend Varric has recruited you to help.
I am so worried about Varric. I have not seen him in any other videos other than that first introductory video. I don't know what's happened to him. I've got my fingers crossed.
And it barely takes a couple of minutes for the game to put the focus on Rook.
Again, excellent hair animation.
After a surprisingly concise story recap from Varric, there are a number of aspects the Veilguard starts easing you into. For one, the combat. Gone are the days of Dragon Age Origins' more CRPG-inspired tactical system, offering
Some people aren't going to like that,
and a mechanic.
but at least you've got the pause menu.
While this absolutely does take some getting used to, and it'll be a gradual process to create what could be a highly customized build while learning all your companions' different.
Now, what I've seen so far in terms of the skill tree, it looks like they've absolutely nailed that. So I'm looking forward to being able to spec my character and companions with this tool. It's looking very, very good.
It didn't take me long to actually start having fun with it. I largely played mage and rogue builds during my hands-on time, and also quickly started to lean on certain companions' abilities. For one, the mage healing ability was essential.
Very useful.
Particularly difficult remnant, I basically established a pattern where I was only using Balara's mana to heal me, dodging and playing it safe when it got too risky. Nev's ability to slow time was also one I kept returning to
Going to be using that, definitely.
the battlefield when the situation got a little too fast-paced. And for you glass cannon builds out there, you'll want to have a warrior around to taunt your enemies out of your way.
I am going to be a warrior. No question about that.
Like a whole lot in the Veilguard, combat revolves around your companions, even though you can't fully take control of
Is
them.
that some kind of electricity coming out of the character there? It's a very useful skill.
Combo options together, and there are certainly opportunities to build team synergy. Oh, and you'll want to listen to your companions in combat too, as they'll occasionally drop some useful hints.
Ooh.
But combat aside, your dialogue choices, your Rook's background, and the frequent decisions you make are immediately important, which shouldn't be too surprising for fans of BioWare games. The dialogue wheel is back, of course, as is the approval-disapproval system.
Now, I thought the dialogue wheel originated in Mass Effect, so clearly I'm wrong.
But I was surprised to see that the Veilguard actually explains the consequences of some of your dialogue choices in very clear terms.
See, you say that.
It's a variation of the so-and-so will remember that system, but more specific.
Very Mass Effect.
Now, so...
Take, for example, my first confrontation with Solas, aka Fen'Harel, aka the Dreadwolf. I chose a more sarcastic, humorous approach with him, and at the end of our confrontation, text on the side of the screen informed me that I have traded
Okay.
with Solas.
This is your responsibility now.
It was far from the only occurrence of this sort of text, and it leaves me curious as to how your relationships with various characters will build and branch out over time based on your attitude. Speaking of consequences, it quickly became clear to me that there would consistently be tons of choices in the Veilguard that'll have lasting results. It probably sounds like I'm stating the obvious here, but I got the sense that even more of these kinds of choices might be peppered throughout than the usual.
I mean, looking at that animation right now and art style, I like it. I don't care what anyone says. I really like it.
I felt like a real jerk about it, and that was
This is problematic for me because in every video I've seen of Harding so far, she's bruised and battered. What on earth has happened? I guess we'll only find out once we get the game.
Dragon Age The Veilguard seemed to be telling me, right from the start, that I'm going to feel like a jerk a lot.
You don't slow down for much, do you?
Without spoiling too much, you'll also be able to see some of your progression and choices in the environment around you as well. But once introductions were out of the way, it was time to explore the wide world of Thedas and see its past and present collide.
Shall we? Let's do
So this is how you move between locations.
As mentioned earlier, one of my biggest worries was that the Veilguard could end up being more linear in its approach, trading branching gameplay for a straight line. And sure, the opening hours, essentially the tutorial zone, are a little railroady, save for a couple key decisions you have to make. But once you're past that and more established within Act 1, you're much more free to tackle quests as you please as you unlock more and more regions. You do this via the crossroads.
Of course.
Brushed up on your Dragon Age lore, that's a nexus between the waking world of Thedas and the metaphysical realm of the Fade, through which the ancient elves would travel through magical mirrors called alluvians. You now use the alluvians for that same purpose, and to unlock new regions, you have to fight through certain areas of the crossroads before you can start fast traveling to them. Unlocking said regions opens
Take him down.
of areas, and not unlike past Dragon Age games, they're dramatically different from one another.
As the gods' champion passed freely, so will you.
Take, for example, the Arlethan Forest.
Yarlathan Forest.
This colorful region that mixes greenery with elven magic. You can see nugs burrow into the grass, magical artifacts abound, and there's a vast array of nature to simply admire. You're hit with a massive tone shift, however, when you head to Hosberg.
Lavendel.
That looks a bit depressing.
Crossing.
Yeah, not very nice.
By the Blight, here is where you'll
That'll be the reason why.
inspired aesthetics and
As long as there aren't any spiders, I'm happy.
while the Veilguard's tone certainly leans more high fantasy in places like the Crossroads, don't worry. Those who miss the gore and dark fantasy of Origins will find that too in places where the Blight has spread. But I couldn't help but spend a lot of my time just running around in Treviso, the bustling city that's home to the
Oh yes, this is the city where you can come across lots of merchants and do things. Trade,
getting sidetracked.
upgrade.
Items here, a new quest to pick up over there, and a random
Ah,
over there.
contracts as well. Great.
And that's just when I wasn't looking around for a cat or dog to pet. Because yes, you can pet the cats and dogs.
As opposed to eating them.
Outside of the cats and dogs, there are some unique ways to interact with the environment as well. Each companion has an environmental ability, some of which came in quite handy for me. In my time in the Arlethan Forest, I frequently called upon Balara, whose environmental ability allows her to tinker with magical artifacts. In a nice quality of life feature, your companions don't even need to be in your party in order for you to use these abilities. As an aside, another one of my favorite quality of life additions is the fact that party banter pauses and picks up again later,
Whoa.
cutscene, or anything else that would interrupt their dialogue. That's right, no more awkward standing around in order to hear the complete conversation.
Oh. Yes.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, the difficulty and accessibility options do allow for about just as much or as little hand-holding as you need. For example, with one Antivan Crow's quest I was doing, I could turn the navigation on and simply follow the game's guidance, or turn it off and look for clues.
Oh. Now, I think that's pretty interesting. It'll make the whole notion of discovery, finding out things for yourself, far more interesting. I like that.
In this case, the crow's purple symbol painted on certain walls.
There it is.
I also just happened to be playing an Antivan Crow Rook while completing this quest, which led to some fun dialogue options.
We crows are all the army Antiva has, but it's not like we can field a garrison.
Once I was in the thick of things, I could clearly see the features in the Veilguard that boiled down to, okay, we heard the complaints about Inquisition, specifically addressing the infamous Hinterlands problem, which is a reference to the first open world area players visit in Inquisition. The zone was packed with more than 50 side quests, many of which boiled down to mere fetch quests, and it left
Now look at that.
in a bevy of checklists that felt inconsequential to the story. The Veilguard has boiled this down quite a lot. You're still free to explore, but the scope isn't nearly as dizzying, and the quests point back to the main story, a region or faction, or a companion. Another clear reaction to criticism
Morrigan is back.
in the Veilguard, Algernon and Gillenane. The two elven gods feel much more present throughout the events of the early game than Corypheus, the frankly lackluster baddie of Inquisition.
Whatever comes, we're ready for a fight.
Words easily said, but rarely proven.
While there's a whole lot more Thedas to see and talk about, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it back home to the lighthouse.
Your base of oh, well, there you go. Base of operation.
Be the most important location of the Veilguard, serving as the hub for you and your companions. Each one of your companions has their own room, and conveniently, a light shines outside of their door when they have a cutscene available. Once you get further into Act 1, it certainly starts to feel more lived in, and you can discover some pretty charming character quirks. For example, I found that Emmerich's skeletal assistant Manfred enjoys spending time on the balcony, and we even got a few games of rock, paper, scissors in.
Wow.
The lighthouse is also, obviously, where you're able to do some housekeeping, especially when it comes to the caretaker.
That caretaker is going to be a very important character when it comes to upgrading and enchanting, clearly.
Upgrade armor for you and your companions. But I found the lighthouse somewhat symbolic of one of the biggest challenges this game is facing, bringing in new players while honoring the now incredibly vast lore that Dragon Age has built across the games, comic books, short stories, and more. Basically, if you were worried that the name change from Dragon Age Dreadwolf would mean less Solus, think again. His history, along with the history of the other elven gods, is baked into the lighthouse, and you learn more and more about the threat you face as you unlock Solus's murals with various wolf statues.
Okay, so you get to learn more about his story. That's great.
We are not gods. You will learn that.
As a lore nerd, I very much appreciated this, as well as the various other callbacks to series history. The Origins fans will likely love the Grey Warden heavy quests, and we already know the Inquisitor will be involved in some way, as you can recreate them and select your world states in the character creator. But I do wonder if it'll overwhelm new players, which BioWare certainly seems to be courting with its action-heavy combat system. That's why it helps, at least, to have something of an outsider like Rook to take the helm of the Veilguard. Plus, the scrappiness of Rook reminded me a bit of playing as Hawke in Dragon Age 2, rather than the more Chosen One-esque protagonists of the Warden in Origins and the Inquisitor in Inquisition. In short, a lot changed in Dragon Age The Veilguard, but there was so much I was relieved to see stay. The focus on companions and romance,
That's great.
and a gorgeous world to explore.
That's really good.
There's still a ton of the Veilguard that I haven't seen, especially if it's as big as Origins and Inquisition, and it certainly seems like it. But after finishing my preview, I found myself even more eager to dive into it, and much more hopeful that this could be the hit BioWare needs.
Certainly needs one. I like it. I absolutely like what I've seen. Some issues that I had a problem with the older games were addressed in this video, so that's good to know. So I'm pretty happy with what I've seen. I think we need to see the character creator. Lots of people have been asking for it. I really want to see it. I want to see if it's better than the character creator in Dragon's Dogma 2. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Anyway, that's all we've got time for right now. So if you've got any comments or suggestions, just put them in the comments section below. Like and subscribe as always, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.